Did anybody kind of side with Magneto
Always.
and his I was just going to say Jordan. Jordan. Hello, welcome to Bite Me Fanboy, a comics podcast. I'm Kate.
I'm Tom.
I'm Jordan.
And I'm Kirsten.
And today we will be talking about the comic God Loves, Man Kills, written by Chris Claremont with art by Brent Anderson. So today Tom is going to be giving us a summary, so I am going to throw it over to Tom.
I am going off of the original version. We can talk about the updated version that y'all had read, but I have a physical copy of this. But the prologue is there are two mutant children who are being chased by a group of, best way I could describe it is kind of like paramilitary gang or vigilante gang, and they call themselves the Purifiers, and straight up they murder the two kids and string their bodies up with the label of Mutie on there. And
it's kind of a gut punch way to start a comic.
It's extremely, extremely dark way to start the comic. And you then see Magneto, who finds their bodies, and Magneto tries to lay their bodies to rest because he doesn't want these children strung up on display. Then we cut to the office of a guy called William Stryker, who is running he's a mega church televangelist guy running a whole thing called, I believe, the Strikers Crusade. And he is reading up on the X-Men. And for reference, I'm going to just say it right here. We have Cyclops, who is a guy named Scott Summers. His eyes project kinetic force. They are not lasers, as someone I knew once would always like to remind people. Then there's Storm, who can control the weather. Wolverine, who is small, hairy Canadian and also has knives coming out of his hands. And he's also got a healing factor. Colossus, who is a large Russian kid who turns into metal. Kitty Pryde, I believe the superhero name she's going by right now is Ariel, but she can phase through solid objects. Nightcrawler, who is Kurt Wagner. He looks kind of like an imp, but he can teleport. And Professor Xavier, of course. Knowing all this, now let's actually get into the actual story. So the story starts with Kitty getting into a physical fight with somebody at her dance class because he was talking about how Stryker was going to help get rid of all of the mutants that were ruining society. And so Kitty picked a fight with him. And the guy, of course, refers to her teacher, Stevie. He calls her teacher, Stevie, a mutie lover. And Kitty really gets mad about that. And there's some conversation about basically what kind of tolerance there is for an intolerant belief. If you're familiar with Karl Popper, Paradox of Tolerance, you can tolerate other people until they want to remove the ability to tolerate other people, and then all of a sudden that crosses the line. But you have Stryker and Xavier debating on TV, which it's very Bill Nye versus Ken Ham. The fact that Bill Nye shows up gives Ken Ham more credibility, that sort of thing. And so the X-Men are frustrated and annoyed, and so because they're all tired from seeing this thing, they all go play in the Danger Room, which is a military, basically a superhero testing facility where you could train using superpowers, all that sort of thing. Xavier, Cyclops, and Storm try to drive back, but when they're going through an area where there's no people around, no sight, no cameras or anything, their car is attacked, and supposedly they are killed by Purifiers, the gang from the beginning. Then Kitty's talking to Colossus's sister, Ilyana Rasputin, who is also known as the superhero Magic. They're hanging out and talking about stuff, and then they find out that they think that the main leaders of the X-Men were killed, but they find a device that's been spying on them in the ground. It basically looks kind of like a GoPro with remote access. I mean, this is the 80s, but it's a camera that you can mount onto stuff for remote viewing. Anyways, turns out that the Purifiers are preparing to attack the surviving X-Men. So they all go and they fight, and there's all sorts of questions about whether or not the purifiers are going to get away with it. They're going to take these people out because they got all sorts of gear for killing mutants. But fortunately, Kitty gets away. She hides in one of the purifiers' car to help get Ilyana out of there. And it culminates in Kitty escaping and being chased onto a subway train. And one of the purifiers is just like, yeah, well, we won't leave any witnesses to this. So he's getting ready to kill all the witnesses to them killing Kitty. And they were going to like leave her dead body and make it look like she killed the people on the train. And all of a sudden the train gets lifted into the air because Magneto showed up and is like, hey, we need to figure out what's going on. And so Magneto takes, because the purifiers are sitting there wearing like metal body armor and stuff like that, Magneto like cocoons them up with their own metal and carries them with his powers. It looks like he's got these very large Myconites with little people faces sticking out of him. He takes them back and they all hang out at the mansion, and between Wolverine and Magneto, they get out of the information that the purifiers are actually a militant group of people who are working for Stryker. Just, outside the law and not officially, so that way he has plausible deniability. And what happens is that Stryker took Xavier and everybody, made it look like they died, but they're alive, and Stryker has kind of set up a computer to plug Xavier's brain into. So, if you've ever seen the movies, this is a thing that you might have seen, but Xavier has this computer where he uses his telepathy to plug in, and he can find mutants all over the world and therefore, find them and help them. And Stryker has that same sort of setup. It's just if Xavier focuses a little too hard and tries a little too hard, he will kill any of the mutants he's listening to, or he's, reaching out to with the computer. And Stryker is putting Xavier through all these hallucinations and stuff, where he is feeling like he's being tormented by his own students. But at the same time, Stryker has also these visions of like what I can best describe as kind of like almost religious revelations, but with Stryker replacing God instead of, divinity. And it's trying to basically like get on Xavier's good side, so he tries to associate Stryker positively while also rejecting the X-Men. And Magneto shows up at a big speech that Stryker's going to be giving at Madison Square Garden and is like, yeah, this guy's trying to kill everybody. And he attacks Stryker using some of his gear and all of his anti-mutant stuff. He has like all sorts of, the Purifier's gear. They have them all fight the X-Men. And Stryker also figures out, because of Xavier trying to kill all the mutants, that his second in command is a mutant, but her powers never surfaced. So he basically kicks her off of a high thing. Think End of Great Mouse Detective when Ratigan kicks his little henchman off of his dirigible. And finally, Xavier gets pulled out. He gets saved. And then the X-Men give a speech while, Stryker's broadcast is going about how they're just trying to be normal people and live their lives. And don't let guys like Stryker divide us, because he divides us more than, anything but different between the humans and the mutants. And at that point, you need to duck, because the message is swinging at you so hard. If it hits you directly, you might get some, traumatic injuries. And then Stryker pulls out a gun and just tries to straight up shoot Kitty Pryde. And of course, he tries to shoot the person who can have a bullet pass through her. But he tries to shoot her. But right at that last second, there's a blam in the page, a bang sound effect, and you're just like, oh, okay, but what happened? But he didn't shoot. He gets shot because one of the security guards is just like, I'm sorry, I saw a guy pulling a gun out at a girl and trying to shoot her. What did y'all think? Why didn't y'all do anything? So the random human who sees Stryker threatening Kitty is the one who saves them from Stryker. Stryker in this book, I believe, dies, but later on they would bring him back. So officially he survived. It's just like in this book, for all intents and purposes, Stryker gets shot by that security guard. And finally, at the end, the X-Men are all sitting at the mansion and talking about stuff. And Xavier says to everybody, like, hey, I've been trying to do stuff peacefully for a very long time. I've been trying to, like, make everybody work together and make everybody see things well, and not be militant. And this is what has where it's gotten me. I kind of think that I maybe I should just give up on my dream. And Magneto's like, okay, finally, you're doing everything. You're finally seeing things the way I see it. You want to join up. And Charles is just like, Eric, I am too scared of like how far and how dark we would go. I don't have it in me to become like militant like you, but I don't know if I believe in my dream. And then Cyclops, who is the leader, I believe at this point, the leader of the X-Men, and he is Xavier's like kind of adoptive son, is just like, listen, I know you don't believe in it, but I believe in it, and I'm going to keep on believing in it, enough for the both of us. So Xavier is feeling defeated and feeling kind of useless because he almost wiped out all of mutant kind. And Cyclops and Storm talk about how they're trying to figure out where to go from there. And that is, for all intents and purposes, a very, very exhaustive version of what's actually kind of a short book.
All right, thank you. So I will start by saying I really enjoyed this comic. I thought that unfortunately the message was pretty evergreen and pretty like something that is still happening to this day. And I really enjoyed all of the characters. I mean, not like every single character. I didn't like Stryker, but like all of the X-Men I really enjoyed. And even like the ideological differences between Xavier and Magneto, like I thought that they both kind of had a point, which I think it might speak to like my ideologies, but I thought that that was kind of like that was on purpose from the author. Like the fact that, people could kind of really like understand both of their points of view. But what did you guys think?
So this comic was re-released as an expanded version in 2020. And in that, it had an interview with Chris Claremont, and he actually described what you were saying, Kate, with the difference between Magneto and Charles, is that Magneto has been through trauma and knows what happens when people don't fight back and when people don't listen to the people who are trying to say, hey, we can do it peacefully, versus Charles has been very privileged to not actually live through anything that's very horrific. So it was very much no, I've seen this happen, these people are awful, versus Charles is an idealist. He doesn't have the background to know how awful people are.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It's interesting also just because, and this is something I was looking up when we were when we were planning this. I did not know this, but there's literally on I believe it was called the Christian Broadcasting Network, or it was a thing that was put out by Pat Robertson, and he straight up is complaining about X-Men and calling them subhuman and how they're controlling the children and corrupting the children of America, going full Wortham on this. And I don't know, like it's fascinating to see somebody who like I'm just like, man, it's a book about a guy who has like I'm going to say it, he has a little laser beam that shoots out of his eye that punches people because they don't want him to burn anybody because that's too violent. So he just has a thing that like hits and pushes. And then that's the thing that's going to corrupt the youth of America. And so you have Claremont turn around and just say, okay, if you think that this is like hardcore ideology and all this stuff that's like, propaganda, and you are afraid of it, then I'm going to make sure that you are afraid. Like, I'm going to make sure you do face down my, my ideology, which is interesting. I do think, as someone who loves this book, it is also the book that is like, if you want to know why X-Men in any media that you're looking at are the way they are, I normally trace it back to this comic. The good and the bad, like the absolute unsubtlety of everything. You could not miss the message if you tried, but also at the same time, the team of people who are trying to wrestle with the idea of a peaceful solution versus going on the offensive. That is also the good of X-Men, and so that's something I really like. One of the famous things also, I think, especially because of the Pat Robertson thing, I do kind of want to bring up, and this is jumping kind of ahead to my favorite panel, but my favorite thing to bring up in this book, and it's the thing that a lot of times, if you look this book up on Wikipedia, this panel is on the Wikipedia page because of how subtle it is. That's sarcasm, by the way. It's Stryker pointing at Nightcrawler, the superhero, saying, "Human, you call that thing human?" And notably, he's pointing not just at a weird mutant-looking guy who's bluish black. He's got 3 fingers on each hand. He's got a tail. But Nightcrawler is also one of the most religious and spiritual X-Men in the series. He is like overtly a character who talks about his own personal faith and his own journey in relation to that and spirituality. And I think that it's very specific that you have this guy who is, couching himself and talking about, I believe he quotes Deuteronomy 17:2, which is interesting because you can tell this guy does not like the New Testament. He does not like, blessed are the poor, blessed are the weak. He's more like, if someone has wickedness in the sight of the Lord, then they need to be put to the death, which is me paraphrasing the Deuteronomy quote. But you have this guy who is all about using his religion as justification. And there's an entire backstory with Stryker that I didn't talk about, but long story short, he believes he is on a divine mission and a divine commandment from God, because if he wasn't, then that would mean he would have done some really nasty things for no reason. And so it must be that he's on a religious crusade. Yeah. You want to talk about that, Jordan?
Yeah, the guy who killed his wife and son couldn't possibly be the monster. It has to be the Catholic X-Men. It's just the call is coming from inside the house.
Exactly. He basically I think he was trying to drive super fast to get his wife to the hospital when she was delivering a baby. They have a car accident. She delivers the baby with some huge traumatic injuries to herself because of the car accident. The baby is clearly some sort of mutant that you never see it, but they imply it looks something like Kurt. It looks something like Nightcrawler. And then he kills the mutant baby, thinking it's like a monster or malformed, not understanding completely what mutants are, I think, at that point. And then when his wife doesn't know what happened and wants to know where the baby is, he basically smothers her. I think he breaks her neck. That's what it is. He breaks her neck, and it looks like everybody died in a car accident. And his thing is no, this must be that I have a divine mission, because otherwise I'm a guy who just killed his own kid and his wife, and I'm not evil. I couldn't be that evil. So this is clearly something. This is clearly a calling. This is clearly a divine message. And if you've ever listened to some of those really dangerous cult leaders, when they talk about stuff they did, this is how they talk. I know there's this is not one of the dangerous cult leaders, but I'll always remember because it kind of went viral on the internet of no, you got to understand, the reason I own all of these jets is because God told me to. I have to own a bunch of jets that I don't use just for fun because God told me it's incredibly necessary. And it's this guy who's clearly just justifying himself after the fact, because otherwise he would have to have some introspection on this. And again, this is also why Nightcrawler is the thing, because if you read the X-Men comics, Nightcrawler is just 90% introspection by volume. The other is a mix of 5% Star Wars fandom and 5% German words and phrases.
So do we want to make it more explicit, the metaphor that is happening here with the mutants?
I think the more you try to map it onto a serious metaphor, the more the flaws of the book come out.
Okay.
If you try to have it be kind of a general thing, I think it works much more. But if you try to, there is no racial minority in America that could control the weather, regardless of any rumors about space lasers or anything like that. There's no one who can control the weather because of how they were born ethnically or something like that. And that's where I kind of get very iffy with X-Men metaphors.
No, that's true. And I also made that point kind of in my notes when I was reading this.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's important to kind of contextualize this. So this was written and published in the 80s, where when the AIDS crisis was really kind of kicking off. And I do think that kind of provides some background information for why these individuals might be experiencing kind of the emotions that they are, and what Chris Claremont was kind of drawing from in terms of because I wasn't born then, but neither were any of you guys. But I think that we know that based off of history, that certain groups, and not just one specific group, but certain different kinds of groups were targeted by hate groups and by religious groups even.
It's usually led by the religious groups.
There you go.
If you've never read the book Jesus and John Wayne, it has a lot of interesting discussion of the nature of how politicians started realizing that religion was a major aspect of how they could start maintaining a power base in this country. And there's a lot of discussion of using religion as a way to mobilize a political base, and that's a huge thing, especially when like AIDS was a thing. Or was this when it was called AIDS, or was it still called GRIDS, which was gay-related immunodeficiency syndrome? Because that's what it was originally called. It was originally like a disease you had if you were gay, and so people were like, "Oh yeah, that's because what happens when you're gay. You get the gay-related disease." And if you ever want to just ruin your day, there are plenty of resources, especially like Internet Archive, Project Gutenberg, or just talking to people who were around during the time, where you can find recordings and records of exactly what people said about a disease that was really horrible, that was killing people. And if someone said that to me about like, oh yeah, that guy with mesothelioma, I mean, I think that's God's judgment of him because he really shouldn't have lived that asbestos lifestyle. I just kind of I would be floored to hear someone say that to me. You'll see these folks in TV broadcasts with their full face, everything, just entirely straight up say that thing. Tammy Faye Baker actually started showing some more kindness. I don't remember what year it was. I don't think it was the 80s. I want to say it was later. But she started showing actual kindness towards people with AIDS, and like it was a huge thing to see a religious leader who was being very compassionate towards folks with AIDS because of how it had been in the 80s. And so like it's really fascinating that is something that is a fascinating subject to read about, is how the AIDS crisis in the 80s and later on going forward intersected with different religious leaders and how different religious leaders responded.
Mm-hmm. Kirsten, what did you think about this?
Well, so what I was going to say was that they still do that where like if you have like a disease or something's happening to you, like it's not just like life happens, it's God's testing you, or maybe you did something bad and like this is your divine punishment. Like they still say that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, moving a little bit back to the content
X-Men.
Back to the X-Men. I thought that like while there is kind of like a like superhero shenanigans going on, right? So like they had like battles and stuff like that. They use their powers. But I thought that instead of having the villain be like a supervillain with like kind of like comic powers and silliness, it was an actual kind of like real person that could and does exist today. And I feel like that made the messaging a little bit more, this can happen. Like this is a story that can be read at whatever point in time and you still get a lot out of it.
It is fascinating to see, like, every once in a while, every few years, there will be a new guy who's coming out who's got a view, something like this. It's just they'll say it about whatever thing that is, like, the scapegoat du jour. And, yeah, it is a thing. And every once in a while, you see that, and I kind of am like, I think it's sometimes where I look back, and I know these are imperfect. I don't like how Claremont tries to have this fictional group try to map onto, like she specifically compares, or Kitty Pryde specifically compares being called a mutant to someone using the N-word, and I really don't like that. I really think that's in bad taste. But the fact is of someone from an established, this is a guy who he runs a megachurch. He is established, he has power, he has authority, and then he's pointing out people who are on the fringes who like don't have the income, don't have the political clout, don't have any of that, but he's saying, yes, this is what's the thing that's in control of our society. This is the thing we need to cut out. Don't look any closer at me or mine. And it's always relevant.
So did anybody kind of side with Magneto?
Always.
And his I was just going to say, Jordan.
Magneto's right. Charles is too idealistic. He's not going to... These people are dangerous. And you have to protect yourself. And at the same time, so Magneto, at one point, does try to just go, okay, I am taking my people and I am leaving. Do not come after us. And that still doesn't work. Because their very existence is a threat to these people.
Yeah.
Well, it's more like these guys believe that the mutant's very existence is a
Right,
threat.
correct.
Maybe actually, when it comes to Magneto, because he can completely kick your ass, yes, Magneto is a threat. But like Kitty Pryde, that she's other than having like a garish X-Men costume, like she's not a threat to anyone. Like she'd be a threat to Tim Gunn maybe, but that's about it. And yeah, it's well, here's my thing. There are different writers who write Magneto in different ways. And I'm gonna be honest, like the formative Magneto for me was written by Christopher Claremont. He's the guy who made Magneto a Holocaust survivor in the comics. That was not a part of the original canon. That was something I believe added in X-Men 150, which is where Magneto turns himself in and goes on trial. Really good comic.
Before you go on, I just want to kind of touch on that for a minute. And you were the first, because that's not in this. Yeah, that's not in this story. That background. And I feel like the addition of, or maybe it was, I don't know, it was you or Jordan who told me that, but that addition, go ahead, Jordan.
I was just going to say, he references it, but like you're saying, it's not explicitly called out. So you would have to have a little bit of knowledge of Magneto's background from the Claremont comics.
Right, exactly. And so I just feel like having that kind of background makes so much more sense when you read and like see what he's doing and like why he's doing it, because he's like, I don't know, I just feel like it gives so much more gravitas to like, hey, I've been through this, and like I was the minority group that was targeted, and like it did not end well for my people, and so I'll be damned if I let this happen to like this new group of people that I'm now a part of.
And that was
Yeah.
so Magneto's line, "One more genocide in the name of God," is a reference to his time and the concentration camps. And I believe his entire family went in and he was the only one who survived.
The other thing with Claremont Magneto is that he writes Magneto as an extremist, but also as someone who is, in at least even in his own mind, trying to do good. And the reason I bring that up is there are other people who write Magneto as an extremist and just straight up a sociopath who will hurt anybody in his way. And I honestly don't really enjoy those Magnetos much, because the Magneto who has an understandable motivation and has flaws, but also you could see his capacity for good, even despite of his flaws, I find him far more interesting as a character. And so there are plenty of good writers who know how to do him, but like that was something I first saw with Claremont's Magneto. I mentioned New Mutants as one of the X-Men series that I used to read, and New Mutants was a team of kids being mentored by Magneto. Xavier was not around, and so Magneto was taking care of the kids, and notably he fails. Like he tries to take care of those kids, he tries to do right by them, and I believe one of his students gets killed, and it is a failure that he failed to protect and take care of his students, and that is also part of what puts him back on a path towards villainy, is him feeling that he has failed to be his best self and is going to like kind of give up on trying to be constructive. And I could see that being kind of the more villainous turn for Magneto. But yeah, that's when I'm like, that's when I do villainous Magneto. That's the kind of villainous Magneto I'm going to like. I am not a huge fan of the straight up cartoon, like, I am going to wipe out all of the humans Magneto, which some adaptations do.
Yeah, Claremont is the Magneto has seen what happens and he's not going to let it happen again. And that's his motivation and humanizing him. And then, Tom, you and I had talked about how Claremont is the one who will mainly have Magneto with his helmet off. So that's another way to humanize him. He's not behind a mask.
He takes his helmet off when he wants to say, I'm coming at this entirely in good faith, because Magneto's helmet is the thing that blocks Xavier's psychic powers and stuff. And so if Magneto is walking around without that helmet on, he's basically saying, do whatever you want, I got nothing to hide. And so that's also why one of the only times you see him with his helmet on is like when he goes up against Stryker, because Stryker has all of these like anti-mutant technology thingamabobs that can like dampen or damage mutant powers and stuff, and you see something like basically those things knocking Magneto's helmet off in the comic, and that's why Magneto becomes vulnerable when Xavier starts killing all the mutants. It's because his helmet's been knocked off by Stryker. In my copy, it's page 59. I don't know if you have the beginning and the end with the new stuff, it's not going to be page 59, but that's where it is in mine.
In the new one, it's volume 2, page 27.
Yeah, you can see his helmet flying off then.
That's a really interesting point about the helmet, and that's kind of like adding characterization without like explicitly saying like, oh, Charles, I'm being real with you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Their discussion at the end where Charles is going, maybe I do need to partner with Magneto, but then it's his students that pull him back and go, no, we can keep trying for peace. And I'm like, yeah. But in that entire conversation, Magneto has his helmet off. So it's back to what Tom was saying earlier, where not every belief deserves airtime. If your belief is that there are certain groups of people that are less than other groups of people, you don't deserve airtime. That's not a valid view. You don't deserve time to be heard out.
Karl Popper, Paradox of Tolerance. You can tolerate other ideas as long as the idea is not that you should stop tolerating other ideas, because when you do that, when you officially have reached that point, then that is literally the antithesis of being able to actually entertain ideas, entertain thought, schools of thought different from yours. And yeah, it's a great way to find a dividing line. Also, I was just looking at this comic, and I do like what Magneto says at the end, where he says,
Save it for the best quotes.
Oh, best quotes? Okay, I'll save it for best quotes. I'm sorry, I got distracted by Magneto being Magneto.
No, he's awesome, but like I have best quotes too. I gotta save them.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to step on your toes.
No, you're good.
Yeah. I noticed when Xavier's crying at the end, talking about how he's questioning his dream, but he does believe in his students. It is Nightcrawler. It's Kurt that's giving him a tissue. So again, it's the guy who is the spiritual center of the team. Also, side note, Nightcrawler is my favorite X-Men. I'm not gonna hide that. I'm like, Nightcrawler is my favorite. Kurt Wagner is my favorite X-Man, and I will talk about him way too much if you let me. So
he's great. Kirsten, do you have anything you want to jump in with?
I don't think so. You guys have kind of said it all.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Well, so Kirsten, do you agree with Magneto or Charles?
Magneto, like 1,000.
Are we all Team Magneto here?
Well, I thought you weren't.
Really?
I mean, I really was leaning towards Magneto, but I can see the other point of view.
When did this change?
At the end, when they were doing that whole thing with like Charles, like, come on, like, come to my side. I really wanted him to go to his side.
I think that
pick a side, Tom.
I think they are both incredibly necessary. My side is well, actually, I've told you what my side is off mic, but my side is the Morlocks. So in X-Men comics, there's a type of mutant who, because they don't look like normal people, they can't really pass as just a guy walking around on the street. So they have like lived in tunnels under New York, have their own little society, and they're a group of runaways and other folks who have their own society protecting each other and all of that. And I like them because they seem to have more ideas than just assimilate or fight. And it's more like, okay, we're going to build a society. And then, like when people are willing to come to the table, we will let them, interact with our society. But until that time, we're going to start taking care of the runaway mutants who can't find a place to live. So I have a strong affection for the Morlocks for that reason. They're not always well written, but I still like them. I guess if you're going to throw it out there, probably like Cyclops or Storm rather than Xavier or Magneto, because Cyclops is someone who is a lot more realistic, or he's much more of a realist than Xavier, but he also is like, no, I'm not going to just give up on people like Magneto does. And so I guess maybe Cyclops, but also depending on who's writing Magneto, he is very good. If Magneto's being written like a crazy person, then you are supposed to agree with Xavier probably. So in those cases, Xavier. But yeah, like I said, I think the head and the hand need a heart.
Very diplomatic of you.
I'm sticking my tongue out at you.
Okay. But I do kind of want to go back to what you were talking about with how it's sort of like a messy metaphor when it comes to like marginalized communities. Because I could be wrong, but like I'm pretty sure that like that's how a lot of X-Men stories are supposed to be read, right? Like they're kind of a metaphor.
A lot of them, yeah.
Okay. And I do agree with you that like it does get strange because they do have these like powers that can kill people. So like it like I feel bad saying this, but like it makes sense why some people would be scared, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that is the thing that always makes the metaphor a thorny thing. Like there was a whole thing years ago where a esports tournament. It was women's esports, that is to say, computer strategy games, and there because for some reason there was had to be a women's versus men's computer game tournament. And beyond just the weirdness of that, there was a rule someone instituted, and this was later removed, but it was a rule of you can only have one trans person on the team who at a given time.
The fuck?
And there was a satirical article responding to that, saying why would having a trans person, more than one trans person on your team, be different? And they said, well, actually, that is a good logical choice, because as trans people, we do have the ability to project electricity from our hands and shock our opponents in computer games. Someone did figure out about that. We also have a wider range of vision than most humans, and actually have the ability to rotate our heads 180 degrees backwards. It's just this very satirical article of like why. What is the entire school of thought of this on a computer game? You know, we're all sitting here with a mouse and a keyboard, and it kind of reminded me of like the X-Men metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. So I can see why it would be a little bit of a thorny, as you said, metaphor, but kind of like the overlying point of like hatred and oppression and like all of that stuff. Even like the way that this story kind of tackled it, which is like the religious overtones and kind of like how, like Jordan was saying, how like the religious kind of groups are spearheading these movements to disenfranchise these groups, and to, you know, hurt them. I think that that is somewhat applicable. So like,
Yeah,
that's something that resonated with me.
I had a teacher in ninth grade who was gay but couldn't ever acknowledge it and couldn't ever mention it, and I'm just kind of fascinated, because I'm like, what did they think would happen if he mentioned being in a committed relationship with a man for 20 years? He's an old guy with like a beard. I'm like, what was his plan? Was he going to like, could he mind control people? Like, what was his, like, did he have superpowers? And I think that's how some people treat people who are outside of the assumed cultural normative self. There's like this assumption in weird ways of like, yes, if they talk too much about how they are, it can just destabilize society. And I guess the trade-off on this thing is that, yeah, okay, you know, if you keep talking about this, you know, group like they have superpowers, well, here is a minority group with superpowers, and they're going to defend themselves. And so, like, on some level, part of me just, you know, does get it. I get why there'd be that kind of lure there. It just gets really weird. It just gets really weird to me whenever there's direct comparison to real life issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. What did we think of the ending?
Now, okay, so Kate, did you read the extended edition or did you read the original? And which ending are you talking about? Because there is a frame story in the extended edition.
Tell me about the frame story.
So that's where Kitty is talking to a girl who knows where Eric is at this point, and is hiding him. And so the frame story is that Kitty is telling this older story. And then at the very end...
Oh, no, I didn't read that.
Okay.
So at the very end, what happens?
Oh, so at the very end, Warden, who is working for the Office of National Emergency. So basically it's federal agents are terrorizing children to get information. Her dad mentions that he was a federal officer and confronts the warden who is terrorizing the girl. So it's not all federal agents are bad in the comic. It's the ones that are terrorizing children are definitely bad.
Interesting. I wonder why they added that.
And this was added in 2020. So applicable again now.
I can't imagine what in 2020 there would have to be not all of these guys are bad.
Oh.
added into a comic.
Well,
I can't imagine.
The point was not all of the point was not all of them are bad. At least that's not what I took away from it. What I took away from it is the federal agents shouldn't have to terrorize children in order to get their jobs done. If they have to do that, then they're incompetent.
Interesting, because I don't know which version, Kirsten, you and Tom read, but the one that I read ended with just kind of like, it was right after Kitty Pryde's speech, and it was kind of like this down kind of note. Like, it wasn't very hopeful. It wasn't like a positive, like, happy ending. It was like, well, we kind of like did our job, and like today was a win, but tomorrow is just more of the same, right? Like, it's going to be just like every single day is just going to be like another battle when it comes to these individuals.
Yeah, that's what I read.
So what did you think about that?
I mean, I thought it was realistic. It's just like kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Everybody was kind of depressed, and it's like, well, it's just gonna keep on happening. The end.
It sounds like the frame story, they tried to make it a little bit more hopeful, because the last two panels are, this is a conflict that will never end, that reaches to the core of our souls. If our lives, our struggles matter at all, they have to be defined by hope. So it is trying to bring it up, I guess, in the new.
Yeah.
If I may quote something that's the only thing less subtle than this book. Unless someone like you cares a whole lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. And that's from the Lorax, which is the only thing that is more unsubtle than God Loves, Man Kills.
I mean, clearly people have to be hit over the head with the message in order to understand it.
Yeah.
Because we just keep repeating the same mistakes.
So true. All right. I am going to bring us into Thomas the Take Engine, who here has some hot takes and or controversial opinions about this comic, or about the X-Men in general, or about, should I say, religion? Or would that just be...
Okay, we're going to start. Let's start with we're going to have another religious schism. Going to create a new type of Protestant from off of Protestants that's super Protestant now. My hot take is that God Loves, Man Kills, because of how influential it is the best and the worst of a lot of X-Men stuff. It has the bad comparisons to real life struggles. It has the good character dynamics. It has a good message that's also delivered in the most unsubtle way possible. And it has the ensemble cast of people who I really like. And so if you ever watch any of the X-Men movies, they are always in the shadow of this book. We'll get into the adaptational stuff later, but like, if you've seen any X-Men adaptation, I guarantee you there is something related to God Loves, Man Kills that shows up in it.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. I think my hot take, I'm not sure if this is a hot take, but I think that this story is not necessarily critiquing religion as like a concept. I think it's critiquing fanaticism and kind of like what an ideology can do to a person when it just like overtakes their entire being.
Yeah, the idea is it's exactly what you said. It's the fanaticism, and actually, so Kate, I will circle back to what you just said when we hit the adaptation thing, because there's something I could say about that. But yeah, it's one of my favorite pieces of horror media is a show called Midnight Mass, and it has that same sort of thing. It is about people who have this sunk cost fallacy in how they believe and how they operate, and how that I can't have done this because then I'd be, like, done something bad. So there must have been a good reason for me to do this, and avoiding introspection and all that sort of thing. That's such a aspect of that story, and it's framed through many different viewpoints. And you start, like, a part of it is like a discussion of religious faith, but at the same time, there's a discussion of it in terms of just how everybody's interpersonal relationship throughout the whole thing. And this isn't a horror show, but 90% of it is people talking about how either they need to be more introspective or they're in denial about needing to be more introspective.
Anybody else have any hot takes or controversial opinions? Okay. Moving on to the best or the worst drip. So what are the best and or worst outfits? I think Tom mentioned Kitty Pryde's superhero outfit as the worst drip.
Here's the thing. It's not really Kitty. It's that the other X-Men are using outfits that I believe were like either Dave Cockrum or Len Wein designed, and they're really good at designing superhero costumes. And then when you get Kitty's Ariel outfit, that is an entire, how do I say this other than it's someone else who does not, they're doing their best, but when you have some people who have been doing this for so many years, who have a lot of experience knowing how to do character design and personality and differentiate characters from each other while also having a unified look, especially if you look at like how Colossus has this outfit with the red chevrons going down the side, and Nightcrawler has the same sort of red chevrons, but it's a different. It's similar enough so that you could see that they have a connection in their team that unites them color wise, while also there being these little yellow highlights in various places to make these outfits pop out more. And then you have Ariel, which is green. It's hers is it's the weakest because it was not designed by a master, which is like saying it's not the best cake because it wasn't made by grandma. Yeah, it could still probably be a great cake, but
Jordan, you go ahead.
I love Storm's outfit. So both her costume and then at the end, the outfit she's wearing when they're just talking, just the white outfit, it looks great on her. I love the flowy
It does.
sleeves and everything versus the Kitty's green costume is supposed to be flowy, but how it is portrayed gives the artist or makes the artist have a hard time with like where everything is supposed to fall when she is fighting, because there is so much fabric with the sleeves and how the like gloves hold on to it, and they try to keep with the angles around the collars that everyone pretty much has, but it doesn't translate well.
yeah, she has puffy sleeves with gloves on the end, and the gloves should therefore then make it kind of a bit more form-fitting, but they want the gloves to flow into the puffy sleeves, which in turn makes her arms kind of more amorphous, and it's like her elbow, you can't tell where her elbows are sometimes.
Right.
It's such a weird design for how they did her. I think you could probably do a good job with this outfit in the right time and place. It's just that this outfit did not work, and that's why later on, probably one of her more well liked outfits is basically a slightly colored different version of Nightcrawler's outfit, where it's a black and yellow suit instead of a red and black suit. But that's going to be like kind of the color scheme and stuff that would later define her as like a superhero and make her recognizable, because it is a similar pattern to other X-Men. It fits with the style, and a lot of X-Men stuff it uses either blue and yellow or black and yellow.
Mm-hmm. Also, is it face paint or a mask? Because depending on the panel, it looks different for her.
It is depending on who draws it. It is depending on who draws it. Depends on whether or not it's a face paint or a mask. Like, no one can agree.
And it changes during the comic to where I'm like, the first part of the comic, I'm like, okay, it's a mask. And then we get to like one or two panels. I'm like, no, there's nothing holding it on her face. That's clearly face paint. What in the, and like it's, there's even one or two panels where it's missing the outline that make it look like a mask on the diamonds. So it's just like, it literally looks like makeup.
Yeah.
The designer made it difficult on the artist.
Yeah. There's another costume. There's a costume that she had. I remember, I believe it was in when she was in Excalibur, which is another superhero team, which had even puffier shoulders or even puffier sleeves. And as much as I like it, it looks nightmarish to draw. And you can tell. I'm going to show you a picture of like how it looks normally. Okay, this looks normal, right? It's going to be fine.
No.
And then
No, I'm not.
just wait.
That's so much better than what
Just
she
wait.
currently has, though.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just wait. It's going to get horrible. It's going to get horrible.
Yeah, her waist is smaller than her head. Yep.
Oh yeah, well no, that I'm not
I
talking
know,
about her
superhero
proportions.
comics.
I'm just talking about the costume in a vacuum. It's a costume in a vacuum. I'm going to send you the cover of Excalibur #1. Now, tell me the anatomy of her arms in this picture.
Yeah, because the gloves are the same.
Oh, no.
So she's folding her arms, but
The
the
gloves
gloves
are
are
the
the
same-
same color, so they blend in, and it's
Yeah,
it's so much
and
fabric.
her poofy sleeves are just like looping over each other. It just looks like she's wearing like a pom pom almost as like a shirt, and she doesn't have arms.
It's thinking like a very loose straitjacket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, yeah, a loose straitjacket is a good way of describing it. Yeah, and then I'm gonna send y'all what she like the more iconic outfit she has, which is so much easier.
Yes.
It's so much easier to see. So much more
Better.
normal. So much better. The best strip, I always love Nightcrawler, but if we're going to go down to it, you were talking about Storm when she's like casual and chilling out.
She looks so good.
Also, in addition to that, Storm at the beginning when she's hanging out with Xavier at the debate and everything. Storm and Cyclops are very well dressed. That's kind of the thing, is like you have these folks who are hanging out and they look incredibly classy while also maintaining, like, they're not in outfits that are like reminiscent of being superheroes, but they're in outfits where you can clearly see they're the same person. And it's such an interesting way they pull that off. Like, Storm is in this kind of, at least the way it's colored for me, this kind of whitish pink outfit. That has a lot of flowing fabric and a dress, and I could tell that Storm. And then she also has these necklaces on, these big gold necklaces, and you can like clearly see that that's Storm, even though she's wearing normal clothes. And I just think that's such a cool piece of character design to see how that, you know, how you make sure people can see this person outside of a super suit and make them recognizable. It's the same thing with, Cyclops is pretty easy because he always has red sunglasses. But even then, guy in the suit with like the red sunglasses, the way he's wearing like not a tuxedo, but like a business suit with the red sunglasses as the highlight, which is another good way of like just showing this guy like an outfit that shows who he is.
I want to shout out my boy Metal Man. What's his name? Colossus?
Piotr Rasputin.
Yeah. Jordan, what was that noise?
He is so annoying, especially in the beginning. I'm like, just let Kitty beat Kid up. He deserves it. He comes.
How is he annoying? He's just... Oh, okay. Just because he's a good person?
Yes.
Kitty deserved to be able to beat the crap out of that kid.
Okay. All right. So this is going to be lumped in to the same bucket that Superman's in, that Captain America's in. I'll put Colossus in there too. Good to know. Anyway, I just really love his thigh-high boots.
Oh, yeah. His outfit is kind of like, what if a circus strongman was a superhero? He's got like thigh-high boots. He's got these two big chevron shoulder pads that come up from his belt. He's got like the strongman trunks and a big wrestler belt, and that's about it as his super suit.
I love it.
Because otherwise he's made out of metal.
Yeah. So technically he doesn't even have to wear it. He's just wearing it because he thinks it looks great on him. And he's right.
Oh, yeah. No, that was an outfit given to him by Xavier during their first mission.
Aww.
He got it from... Xavier got the materials from the Fantastic Four. And he outfitted... So Colossus... this is something which I think we're definitely going to do for an episode here. Because it's called Second Genesis, which is where the X-Men team that a lot of people think of as the X-Men first show up. It's where Wolverine joins and all that. But long story short, Xavier builds a team of mutants from all over the world, and you get to see them all get fitted for their costumes. And so Piotr's from the Soviet Union. Storm is recruited in Kenya. Nightcrawler's in Germany. There's also Banshee, who is Irish. But he's not here. But, like, you know, it's like Wolverine's Canadian. Like, they're all these... It's an international team. So, yeah.
All right.
Hold on. You didn't let me tell my best strip.
I'm so sorry. You go ahead.
Oh my god, Kate. You know the evil lady who's, like, chasing Kitty around town? Her name is Anne. She wears, like, a green, tight outfit.
Yes, the leader of the Purifiers.
She gives off such Shigo vibes. I love her. Just her outfit. Not her as a person. Just the outfit.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. She has, like, this green Shigo looking outfit.
You're right. You're right.
If Shigo had a hood, that's what Anne from the Purifiers would be wearing.
Shigo is so hot. I love the Shigo look, so.
Everybody loves Shigo.
Yep. All right, you may continue now.
Okay, thank you. That was a great addition, though, because I had to go look. But she does look great. She does look like Shigo. Okay, so best words or best quotes. Tom, you had this locked and loaded.
I had Magneto's last little speech, but was that what you also had?
No, you go ahead. I was going to have the one that Kitty gives at the end.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah, excellent. Then I'm not stealing your thunder.
No.
He says, of course, they basically say we aren't going to work with them. And he says, "You're a fool. You are all fools. I have wept over many graves, X-Men. I will not do so over yours." I cannot fight for that which I do not believe, Kitty, as much as I wish it would be otherwise. For all of our sakes, mutant and human, I hope you do. Or she says, they might win. He says, I hope you do. But should you fail, it will be my turn. Which is just like when you fail, I am going to be what is left. Which is just kind of like the big warning sign, the big thing that the X-Men want to avoid, the thing that they're trying to stop. To quote Babylon 5, their last best hope for peace is because if they lose that, that's what they have waiting for them. That's what everybody has waiting for them, is Magneto, who is ready and raring to go with some colossal apocalyptic things.
Yeah. I really liked the ending where the X-Men are kind of confronting Stryker. And Stryker says, like, I do nothing, Cyclops. I'm an instrument of the Lord. And whatever a man's color or beliefs, he is still human. Those children and you X-Men are not. And Scott says who? You? What makes your link with heaven any stronger than mine? We have unique gifts, but no more so, and no more special than those granted a physician or a physicist or philosopher or athlete. It could be due to an accident of nature or divine providence, who's to say? Are arbitrary labels more important than the way we live our lives? What we're supposed to be more important than what we actually are? So that just kind of like stuck with me. And then Stryker goes, like, you dare call that thing human? And he like points to Nightcrawler. And Kitty Pryde just kind of like pops up and is like, more human than you, because of like his behavior. And she goes on to say kind of like, you know, he's kind and he's generous and he's decent, and you know, he's had every opportunity to be bitter, but he chose kindness and he chose goodness. And that makes him better than this asshole.
And again, that's why I like Nightcrawler.
Yeah, I see why. Jordan or Kirsten, you got anything?
I said one of mine earlier, the once more genocide in the name of God, and then Tom had my other one, but at the same point, Magneto is going, I hope it'd be great if y'all's way actually worked. It probably won't. Because in one of the things I was mentioning earlier, Kate, to where it kind of alludes to his past without coming out and saying it, is when Magneto is arguing with Scott, and he goes, look at yourselves risking your lives for a humanity that would rather see you behind bars or dead. And Scott's going, is your way any better? And Magneto responds, don't take that tone with me. I've lived under a dictatorship and seen my family butchered by its servants. So that's the note where he's referring to his backstory. And so he's saying, if I was in charge, it would be for the betterment of all, which, I mean, that's every dictator, though. So
Yeah.
it's...
Listen, if it ripped to them, but I'm different.
Yeah, so it is very much people want to have someone in charge of them. But anyone who wants that power is inherently going to be a terrible ruler because they want the power. So there's not really a winning, sustainable situation.
Yeah, this was full of good quotes and like powerful words, I think.
Oh, another good one. Because when Xavier is talking about how he agreed with Magneto and he just says, I feel so ashamed. And then Cyclops says, to be proven only human and as flawed and vulnerable as the rest of us, where's the shame in that?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Kirsten, before we move on, you got any?
I like Cyclops' spiel where he mentions that, like, it's not the purifiers who are dangerous, but it's the man himself, and it's the ideas that they bring. And if you don't stand up to those here and now, then all we've done is delay an inevitable holocaust.
Yeah, it's powerful. So adaptation analysis. Tom, here is where we're going to be talking about the adaptation. So I know I've seen the first trilogy, so like the early X-Men with like Elliot Page and what was her name? The other one that was Kitty Pryde.
Elliot Page was Kitty Pryde.
Oh, okay.
Are you thinking of Anna Paquin? Anna Paquin was Rogue.
Yes. Okay. Thinking of Anna Paquin.
Yeah. The second of those movies is a direct adaptation of God Loves, Man Kills. And that was part of why I was thinking, because you were talking about how it's about fanaticism rather than religion. And I think that's very true because he's not a preacher in X-Men 2. He's a military officer who works in anti-terrorism, and this is a movie that was existing in the post 9/11 world, and so he was looking for terrorism even when there wasn't terrorism, and his entire plan involves, doing the same thing, like wiping out all the mutants and everything like that. And he's this Stryker is this general who is kind of not necessarily, like, he has gone off the grid enough for the movie to be like, okay, not all generals, but like this guy is doing all sorts of sinister scheming and all that sort of thing. And there's a lot of him talking to different people and talking about how he hates the mutants because they are this, like, basically, in his opinion, he's like, they're a terroristic threat that can look like anybody. The other thing is, in that movie, his son is not dead. His son, actually, he tries to live with his son, who is based on an X-Men villain known as Mastermind. And his son, it messed with the son has the power to mess with your perception, and he messed with Stryker's wife's perception that she, according to Stryker, she killed herself. And he keeps his son around as just a way to basically use his powers as a way of controlling people. But he is a guy who sees mutants as a means to an end, and then, like, when he is able to get rid of mutants, then that will get rid of his son and kind of just wipe that whole problem under the table. And the fanaticism of this guy is very, at least to me, it looks very like the right, like they're adapting the right parts of the character when they have him. I believe he's played by Brian Cox, and yeah, that was X-Men 2, X-Men United, which also has Magneto. And the thing is they don't have Magneto as sympathetic as he is in this book, because when he goes and does his thing, he also tries to wipe out humanity in one fell swoop. But honestly, like, I get it, because they still wanted to keep Magneto as a villain for the next movie. I love X-Men 2. I think it is probably the best X-Men movie. It's also the one with Nightcrawler in it, coincidentally.
Coincidentally.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that Nightcrawler does show up, played by, I believe, is Cody Schmidt-McPhee in the later series. It's just they don't give him much to do. But in this one, they have Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler.
I remember that.
He is amazing. If you've never seen X-Men 2, go on YouTube, look up X-Men 2 White House fight scene, and you get to see probably one of my favorite fight scenes in movies, where it is a mind-controlled Nightcrawler being sent in as an assassin during the White House, and you just see these people who are all trying to figure out how to take him out, and they don't realize what his powers are, and so they're slowly you see it from their perspective, and it's like this kind of not a horror movie, but it's getting close, because there's this guy who they cannot keep a beat on, they cannot follow. He is just kind of everywhere at once, and it's a really interesting just use of this character.
Have you guys seen the first kind of X-Men trilogy, and then also the more recent one?
Mm-hmm.
How do they compare to each other?
I liked the first three better, but they also had more Rogue. So X-Men Evolution was my first X-Men anything. And so I want Rogue and Gambit and everything.
Kirsten, how are you with the X-Men movies?
I only saw the first set when I was a kid, so I never saw the second set.
Me neither, so that's why I was asking.
I think there are good ideas in First Class. I think there is some very interesting ideas. I think there's a huge flaw in that movie, because so they have, basically by the end of it, the Brotherhood of Mutants, who is the villains who break off from the X-Men. The Brotherhood are like all of the ethnic and non-white characters.
Ooh.
And like, yeah, they do have some, like they have one white actor. They have Katniss on their team as Mystique. But like, yeah, Angel Salvatore. Oh, she joins up with the Brotherhood. Like it's just like, wait a second, why are the only people left? Like Havoc, who's white, Banshee, who's white, Beast, who is technically white, but he turns into a blue ape man. But like, I'm just like, wait a second, what's up with that? And also they kill off Darwin, who's literally a superhero whose power is that he survives things. But he is the first X-Men to die, and he's played by the black man in the cast. And I am so happy to see him in the new Superman movie as Mr. Terrific, because he gets to play a superhero and be cool rather than be a red shirt. All of that to say, Michael Fassbender is really good as Magneto. Like, you could see exactly why they cast him. He is the redeeming factor of First Class, because you get to see how this guy starts out, and, like, you're like, oh yeah, no, I see this guy growing up to be the Magneto of the first trilogy. That makes perfect sense to me. And it's basic. I was going to say there was an attempt at making a Magneto origin movie, and it got canceled, and I think they rolled it into First Class. And you can tell because the Magneto origin stuff is all the really good stuff in that movie. But what it does do is it does lead us into the Rogue cut of Days of Future Past, which, if you want Rogue is in it. It is a really good adaptation of a very impenetrable comic that's hard to explain to people unless you're used to reading comics. But the premise is that it has the First Class cast meeting the original trilogy's cast because of time travel, and they do a really good job. And you get to have both Magnetos doing Magneto things. You get to have Rogue, only in the director's cut. Rogue's only in the director's cut, which is why they call it the Rogue cut. You get to have all sorts of fun stuff there. I have a lot of affection for it. One of these days I'm going to make y'all watch Days of Future Past, the Rogue cut.
I'm down. All right. And then finally, what are some recommendations that we can give to people who liked this comic and who perhaps want to explore something kind of like in the same realm or the same kind of style?
Start with Giant Size X-Men #1, which is where you get the team that most people think of as X-Men, and go from there. Like, that was how I started reading of the mainline X-Men games, X-Men comics. I started with Giant Sized X-Men, where they fight Krakoa, the island that walks like a man, and it just goes from there, and you start seeing this stuff, and that's where Jean saves them from a whole thing where they were held hostage on a space station. They crash while flying a shuttle, and Jean comes out of that with, like, even more power, and she starts calling herself Phoenix. And this is all very much, like, under the Claremont umbrella, because Claremont wrote X-Men for such a long time. But that is where I come from with X-Men. Like, there are so many good X-Men comics from nowadays, because there's so many different X-Men comics. Like, Marvel puts out, like, a billion of them at a time. But the stuff that got me into X-Men was probably Giant Size #1.
Is there anything else that Claremont has written?
I just mostly know him as the X-Men guy because he did it for like 20 years.
Okay.
But I know he did stuff. He used to do stuff with like Fantastic Four and stuff like that. But he, for the most part, was like in charge of controlling a lot of X-Men stuff. And then eventually, after he stopped being the guy running X-Men, he moved into various like other smaller comics and stuff like that. I know he did stuff with Exiles, which was a kind of like what if Marvel Comics but Quantum Leap, or Marvel Comics meets Sliders. He also does a lot of stuff with World AIDS Day, and he's like mostly known for X-Men stuff. That's the thing. I'm trying to think what other stuff have I read by this guy, but I think yes, he has also written Alien vs. Predator comics. That's the other thing I've read by him.
Would you recommend them? Kirsten, is there anything manga related that has the same kind of style or the same kind of like themes or anything like that?
Nothing comes to mind right now.
Okay.
I know one that comes to mind. My Hero Academia.
Is that a joke?
No, My Hero Academia is like a shonen manga that is clearly heavily influenced by X-Men comics.
Oh, okay. So my head was going to like the religious kind of fanaticism of...
Oh, no. I was just going to say... Yes, the fanaticism of My Hero Academia. I mean, don't get me wrong. The bad guy is a fanatic. He's just like a different kind of fanatic. But like, if you want an ensemble cast of a bunch of weird characters that is heavily... My Hero Academia is a popular series, and it's heavily informed by X-Men. To the point that one of the big superheroes, All Might, is like... He is shaded weird, and he looks kind of weird for how the manga looks, because he is a reference to how the 90s X-Men were all drawn. And that's why he looks the way he does. Like, if you look up like Jim Lee X-Men designs, and then you look at All Might, you're like, oh, okay, that's why he looks that way.
Interesting. Yeah, no, you're totally right. So like you're talking about kind of like the family and like the bunch of superheroes like being together. Yeah. I was on a different wavelength talking about religious fundamentalism, and I was like, I read something different.
I think zealotry is very complicated when it comes to like finding the good zealotry comics that discuss it,
It's true.
because like to find the person who does it right, it's very difficult.
All right. Anybody else have? Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead, Jordan.
If you want comics that kind of have, so not completely religious zealot, but it could also be like political zealots. So more religious is Wicked and the Divine, kind of has some of those notes in it. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, for a factor of religion, then yes, technically, like it's discussing the zealotry from the perspective of the gods.
Yeah. Well, but then
That's
there are
fun.
the people who are trying to kill them are the other side. So yeah.
Yeah,
So Monstrous has there are groups that are fighting because of people who look different and act different. So it is very much that. So many trigger warnings for Monstrous, but it is beautiful. It is the illustrations are beautiful. The story is well written. It is a very mature comic. So lots of warnings. Look up the details of the specific triggers before you pick it up, but if you are okay with mature themes, it is definitely worth a read. It's an amazing comic. It is a very difficult read, not to understand, but it deals with, again, mature topics. Fables. When it gets into the later comics where you're finding out why they're no longer in their homeland. So that's very much certain fables are allowed in certain places. And that one is not as mature as Monstrous, but there are certain elements in certain comics that
I was gonna say it's dark, but it's not necessarily as mature as like in terms of like maturity. That is, yeah, that's a very accurate statement.
well, it's fun. I love fairy tale retellings and like looking at the different characters in different ways.
All right. Awesome. Those are some good recommendations. Anybody have any last thoughts? Okay. Thank you for joining us on Bite Me Fanboy, a comics podcast. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow comic fans. Also, please consider supporting us via Patreon, where you can listen to episodes before they go live and unlock special bonus content. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.